Hey there! Have you ever looked at your snowboard and thought, what if it had a tail? Well, if you hadn't before, you are now. Before we begin, you might be asking yourself, why in the hell is this ape cutting a hole in his perfectly good snowboard? And you know what? Fair question. You see, I'm a bit of a fat ape, and even with this board, I still find myself too heavily favoring my back leg and deep powder, which a powder board is supposed to address. And would if I were about 40 pounds lighter, but since I'm not, I might be able to cheat by giving the tail of this board less surface area, thereby increasing the pressure per square inch my back leg imparts on the snow, thereby shifting the balance towards the front, which is what I'm after. So, let's go! The first thing I'm doing is measuring the center line and marking that off with a piece of tape. The old saying is measure twice, but in this case, I'm gonna measure like 10 times. There really is no coming back from cutting up a $500 board. Next, I'll snag a piece of paper, fold it in half, and trace out the shape I think I'm gonna like. Now, with the paper folded in half still, I cut out my shape. Now I can unfold it, line up the crease with the center line, and use some spray adhesive to put the paper down onto the board. If I've measured my center line correctly, this should give me a perfectly symmetrical shape. One last time making measurements. This could be done with a Dremel, but I have air tools, so I'm going to use a sheet metal cutoff wheel and an air saw to cut my tail off. Now I'll smooth it all out with a dual action sander and some 180 grit sandpaper. Then I'll hand sand it with a sanding block and I'll smooth out any burring by hand. Giving the old girl a blowjob now, it would also be best to remove the bindings. Don't be a lazy f*** like me. We're not done yet. I'm going to take the extra step of sealing the edge with a piece of fiberglass and some epoxy. I do a lot of fiberglass work here and there, so I happen to have it in gallons, but you can just get away with a little part store tube. I'll mix up my epoxy. Get a length of fiberglass cut, and I'll lay it out on some throwaway plastic. I'll use an acid brush to soak the fiberglass. Now with the board standing up, I'll lay my fiberglass down over the open wound. An important note about epoxy, don't use it if it's cold, like below 68 degrees in freedom units or 20 commie degrees. If you do, it won't cure right, if it cures at all. I have a UV heat lamp, but you can use any source of heat you can think of to keep the board warm, even just throwing it inside your house as long as your wife don't find out. I let my epoxy dry under the heat lamp overnight and came out to a nice cured strip of fiberglass bacon that made a mess all over my board. Told you I'm lazy. No biggie, I can fix it. But first, let's just grab a razor blade and trim away all the excess fiberglass and epoxy. I got a section here where I got a drip of epoxy that ran down the face of the board, so I'll use the edge of the blade to scrape away the excess. It looks like I'm thrashing my board, but stick with me. Normally I'd grab some soapy water, but being lazy, I'm just gonna straight dish soap and some 600 grit sandpaper to sand out the scratches. I'll progressively step up with 800 grit, then finally finish with 1200 grit sandpaper. Now I'll just buff it out with some rubbing compound on a wool pad, just like buffing out a car. I'll switch over to a Lake Country purple pad and polish it out, also with compound. Take a look. It's now the least wrecked, most shiniest part of my board. Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you liked my hackery, give the video a like. And if you want to see more hackery in the future, hit the subscribe button. Hell, smush the bell icon as well so Google will know you too want to know how to swallow tail. And I'll see ya next time.